Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Journey to Becoming a Head Coach. This is season 2, and this is COVID part 3. And this is, I think, pretty much where this series, unfortunately, is going to come to an end. I might do some revamps on some of the older videos when I have a chance to go back and look through them, cover some other things in more detail. But as far as the journey itself, from you guys saw from the interview to the staffing to everything, this series is kind of running its course. Again, I just want to really cover the first 2 years of becoming a head coach, kind of what inspired me on my journey. So again, I thank you for all the love and support that I've seen. Again, I really do truly appreciate that. This is going to be the final piece of the COVID part. This is going to kind of bring us up to date as far as today with the newest CIF press release from the Southern section that just came out today. Just going to kind of cover everything, how things have changed, what's occurred, and some dates and some things that have happened, and what we're doing to account for that. So here we go. So October to December, we got going in September. And one thing I forgot to cover in the last video, my staff got decimated once September hit. June, we were rocking and rolling. I had 7 slotted for varsity. I had 6 on the JV. I had 5 slotted for the freshmen. After that final kind of shutdown where we decided to kind of just take August off, one of my coaches already knew from the varsity was leaving. He took another position. But it wasn't until literally the week before and the day of practice was supposed to schedule to restart that I lost 3 other coaches. So I ended up down to 3 varsity coaches that first week back when we came back in September. Still had the 6 at the JV and then dropped down to 2 at the freshman. So needless to say, my staff got decimated. We had to basically combine coaching staffs and really work a number around to make sure we fit the cohort and the practices and everything else. So when we came back in September, they had adjusted the cohorts. In the summer, you remember it was cohorts of 9. Well, then the CDPH came out and said you could have cohorts of 14, no more. We read a little piece that said no max of 16. So that's kind of how we piece things together. Again, trying to keep it with basically our position groups. So obviously offense was a little bit easier. You had 4 positions, whereas defense was a bit harder. You only had 3. And if we had more than that, we tried to just split them off into 2 subsections. So then that way we planned for, as we saw that we had, 20 DBs, then we tried to separate, okay, this is cohort C, 10 DBs, this is cohort D, 10 DBs, and split them up that way. We didn't want 1 or 2 coaches coaching 20 because we just couldn't have that. So we tried to adjust for that. We tried to account for that. So the practices, and again, they changed from pods to cohorts. They just changed words and added some things to it. The schedule was still the same in October to December. We were supposed to start in helmets December 7th. We were going to do our 2 days in helmets, 3 days in shoulder pads, 10 days in gear, have our inter squad scrimmage December 26th, that Saturday. And then we were slotted to scrimmage CASA and Sutter January 2nd out of CASA. It was going to be, wonderful, glorious. Everything was going good. Practices were starting to pick up. Kids were starting to come out because as they saw the cases drop down, especially in that August, September, and part of October. Sorry about that. When they saw those starting to drop down, our numbers went back up. Things were looking really nice. We were in the positive 30s varsity. We were close up to 30 on JV. The freshmen were getting back up to the high teens, low 20s. It was looking really good. We were like, all right, cool, this is going to happen. We're going to do well. Everything's going to be fine. The CIF schedule is locked. We changed our schedule. We're locked. And we had changed our non-league because since the northern section had kind of flipped things up and they were just going to have an all-north section, we had flipped things up. We were still going to try and play Woodland, but then we were going to have Yuba City, and then we were going to have Golden Sierra, Forest Hill, and El Dorado. So that was going to be our new non-league as opposed to having Oroville, Wheatland, and Live Oak. So that was going to be our new non-league schedule. And I liked that a lot because that was all Sac Joaquin section teams. So in the event we were able to go to playoffs, it's like, hey, now you can compare 5 weeks of Sac Joaquin section and place us correctly. In the event we're able to run the table, go 5-5, 6-4, 7-3, whatever we could do to get ourselves into the playoff picture. So everything started looking really good. I built up the staff again. I pretty much got us back up to 6 on the varsity staff. And we were sitting really pretty as far as once it got to that October, November. So we got that back up. So we were looking really good. Practices were going good. Cohorts were focused. We had the thermometers. We got rid of the daily screenings. We just noticed kids weren't filling it out. And later on, they was like, well, don't worry about the daily screening. Just do the temperature checks. Ask them the questions there instead of trying to do it online and collect the data that way. So And then not only that, to be brutally honest, a lot of the kids weren't filling it out. A lot of our coaches weren't filling it out. So it just made it easier just to do the temperature checks, ask them the questions there, and then go that route, which is basically all everyone else was doing. And I mean, without blowing whistles on anybody, a lot of people were doing things that we weren't even doing. So I mean, there was a lot of people that were playing fast and loose with a lot of the rules. So we tried to maintain things as best we could. Again, changing things. Political overtones. Right around when we came back in September, October, I had heard players, I had parents, I had other coaches, everything. It was overtaking practice. There was the political overtones everywhere. And again, I'm not getting into it. I'm not going to have that conversation. If you want to have that conversation, we can do that later on a face-to-face or I can do a whole nother video on the political piece if that's something that people are interested in. But to be quite honest, I wasn't. I want to be out. I want to coach football. People were asking like, "Oh, do you think it's real? Not that it's real. Do you think it's as bad as they say it is? How come these numbers don't match? Those numbers don't match?" I was like, "We need to focus on football here. That's what we need to do." And then, as slowly, right around that October time, and I mean, this is what really kind of drove the political conversation at our practices that took forever to quell down, was that the spike started before election. It started right around that Halloween time, which was funny because everyone thought Halloween was going to spike it. Well, it ended up starting to slowly escalate the week of and the week before, which really wouldn't make much sense on that front. And so everyone started saying, "Oh, look, it's starting to spike right before election. Oh, look, it's starting to spike right before election." Like, I don't care. I don't care. I want to focus on football. Let's go. But those numbers kept creeping. And then the information as far as this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, those always kind of kept creeping into practice. How come we have AAU games that are playing? How can you have people in gyms over here, down south, up north? People are in full gyms, but this county isn't. And it was just one of those things that kind of became hard as a coach to really answer those questions when kids are asking to. And I try to be one of those coaches where I'm just brutally honest and I'll answer any question that they give me. But at some point, it's like, no matter how much research you do, you're sitting there and you're like, I can't tell you why one county's doing this or one state's doing that, or I can't tell you why 37 states played football and we're not. I mean, I can't tell you really why, because according to all the information, COVID affects this group, and this group, and it affects everybody. And, these are the rules we got to abide by. So it became hard to be logical with them because they started to see through it, and we're starting to ask even questions that were way above my pay grade, way above any district pay grade. It went up all the way up to the highest of the highs, with your county health officials and your governors and all that. It went up to them, and I'm like, well, I don't have the direct line to their phone number. So, and they were asking about the arbitrariness about everything. How come this group can do, again, the same thing? How come you can dine here or eat there, or you can go to a bar here? And these are, teenage kids asking these questions, and you're trying to be upfront with them, and you're trying to be realistic with them. But at some point, you're like, I don't know. And then it's, oh, well, it's Trump, it's Biden, it's Trump, it's Biden. It's like, I don't care. Again, I don't care. I'm here to coach football. I'm here to make you guys better, period, in the story. So that really started taking over conversations, and kids were having discussions before and after practice. Kids were trying to have discussions with me before and after practice. And it started to wear and tear, a little bit on me and the kids, because, again, especially in that November time where we saw stuff creeping, in the back of my head, I always thought, I was like, man, if these numbers get any higher, something's going to give, something's going to break down, something's going to happen. So, and we'll get to that here in a second. But again, as things were going, everything was looking on the up and up. And then November, everyone's like, oh, Thanksgiving, don't travel, numbers are creeping, all this other stuff. And all these studies are coming out about family gatherings, airports, all this stuff. So the kids just keep trying to ask questions. And of course, I'm trying to make sure I'm educated. So I'm overreading. Got myself into a little bit of trouble. I'll be brutally honest. I went on social media, something I shouldn't have done. And to be quite honest, I meant to post something for my family and friends, and I accidentally hit that little public button. And some of my administration saw it, and I got a talking to. It was a complete and total accident, and I didn't, and it was one of those things. No one was ever meant to be singled out. It was one of those things out of a frustration, and I'll kind of get to when and where I did that. Later on down the line. Again, something everyone's got to learn. And, and here's the thing here. I'm trying to tell my kids, be careful with social media. And here I am thinking I'm making a perfectly okay post, and we'll get to it in a second. But so practice, again, going really well. We dropped 8 players from varsity from the time we stopped in August till then. And primarily it was because players wanted to work. They didn't really believe there was going to be a season or anything like that. Our parents were kind of pushing them to work. We dropped three JV and freshman players, and two overall between the 11. It was due to COVID concerns. That number has risen a little bit now to where we're about 7 or 8 that are concerned about COVID because some do live with their grandparents or immunocompromised family members. So there is a little bit of concern there. And again, like I told the kids, like, look, there's no ill will there, and we'll get to that in a second as well. But I had conversations with a lot of kids, especially with some of the announcements that come out in November and December, especially December, and then even so much as to literally last week where I had some conversations with some students about their choices, living with those choices, and if certain things happen versus if certain things don't happen. But again, practice is going really well. We got those cohorts up. Everything was going fantastic. Everything was going swimmingly. Our offense was coming together. Our defense was coming together. Dare I say, our special teams was coming together. Granted, we still didn't really have a really good long snapper. I'm like, good Lord, not again. So that was something I was really trying to focus on as we were getting close to Thanksgiving break. Again, making strides. November, we were getting rolling. There was supposed to be a big CIF athlete come together thing. There's like 3 let 'em plays going on now. I'm sure some of you have seen them. There's a sports U thing similar to the band, similar to a Facebook that like over 250 schools are a part of, and that kind of boils down to what's going on now, not really what's going on then. But there's just so many little group things that are going on where people are trying to push to get athletics back together and get things going. Again, the players were getting excited. Like I said, we were making strides. We handled contacts very well. As kind of a comparison, in June, we shut down for a week because we thought our coach may have come into contact with someone with COVID. Well, by the time we're here, unless someone was showing symptoms or had direct contact, we're like, hey, everyone just come in, get your temperature checked, we'll let you go. And then when a student would say, hey, I got a phone call, I had direct contact, all right, you stay home. We didn't send a cohort home based on the rules until someone showed symptoms in a cohort. So if cohort A, a player showed up on Monday and then Tuesday they're showing symptoms, then we sent the whole cohort home after Tuesday. We didn't have to do that. We just got lucky enough to where a kid would call us and say, hey, I came in indirect or direct contact. What do you want me to do? Stay home for 10 to 14 days. Get a test if you show symptoms. And that was one thing we were really trying to push. Like, don't bother getting a test unless you're showing symptoms. That was just one thing we were trying to push. And not really push, but it was a suggestion because if they had a family member that tested positive, and then what was going on, a lot of confusion was the asymptomatic versus the symptomatic versus the antibodies versus false positives. And we were just like, look, if you show symptoms, if you got the fever, the body aches, the loss of smell, the loss of taste, the diarrhea, all that stuff, but to be brutally honest, the real difference we saw was that there was a difference between loss of smell and loss of taste. That everything else, it's almost identical to what we were like, hey, this is almost very similar to flu-like symptoms. So we're like, okay, we'll keep an eye out for the loss of taste or sense of smell. And if you show no symptoms, unless your family wants you to get a test, don't bother getting a test, because if they quarantine for 10 to 14 days, then they're fine. Based on the timing, one was 10, one was 14. Now it's 10 according to the CDC. Before that, it was 14. So, like, if you don't get a test, just quarantine for 14. But if you test and then you test positive, then you got to quarantine for 14 days from that positive test. So if they come into contact with somebody on Monday, test positive on Thursday, now they got to wait 2 weeks from Thursday. So we were like, okay, unless you show symptoms or your family really wants you to get a test, don't do it unless you show symptoms. That was just something we were trying to inform them about, because then what if in the event they got false positive? Because, again, the arbitrariness and the horror stories we were hearing about how players and family members and just people outside here were getting 5 tests, 2 would come back negative, 3 would come back positive. So which one is it? Were they positive? Were they negative? And then you're trying to figure out the timing of when they took the test. It was just, it was mind-boggling. It was like, you know what? Here, let's make it really cut and simple. If you got symptoms, go get a test. If you don't have symptoms, avoid it unless your family really wants you to get it. So that was the thing. We made it really crystal clear for our players that they knew. It's like, okay, I'm in direct contact. I got to quarantine for 10 to 14 days. All right, I'm showing symptoms. I got to go get tested. And they would just communicate with us, and it worked out beautifully. And like I said, part of us in the back of mind in our athletic career mind was like, one of us really wanted one of our kids to test positive just because we wanted to really see if by sending a cohort home and by them coming back, if we could avoid an outbreak. I mean, if someone's gone through that, please let me know. We were really curious how well that would actually work. and we kind of wanted to get tested in that way. Like, hey, if we send a whole cohort home and then they come back in 2 weeks, did we prevent the outbreak or does it still get out? So if any of you have gone through that, please let us know. We'd really like to know to kind of compare some data on that front. But as far as us, so far, knock on wood, we haven't had to send a cohort home yet. Now, watch I say that, I'm going to go out to practice and have to send somebody home. But in any case, had a crystal clear plan. We handled contacts. Players were getting excited because, again, the numbers had gone down. Yeah, they were starting to creep after, that first week in November, which, again, started the whole political debate and all that garbage. But we were making strides. We were looking really good. And we're like, all right, cool. We're going to actually have a really nice shot coming into, December. We're going to look really nice. So we were sitting there thinking everything's going good. All right, here's one of the big ones here. We get the December shutdown. So December 1st, CIF sends out a statement release due to the high increase. And I'll admit it was some pretty big numbers that were coming out. I'm not going to lie on that front. There was a lot of numbers that came out. I kept track of them every week. Our district said no practices till January 5th. The CDPH was supposed to come out with something the 14th, and they did. And then the rules, they're hard to enforce. The outside leagues were causing waves. What I mean by that is, so no practice until January 5th. So we were planning on going, obviously, all the way until we were going to give them Christmas Eve and Christmas Day off, and then we were going to have our scrimmage also. So we were slotted to start on December 7th in helmets. We had gone all the way through that. We had come back from Thanksgiving break, and we were ready to go. We had like 2 or 3 days of practice, and we were ready to go, and then boom, we get canceled. And everybody gets canceled. It's not just us. Everybody got canceled. Everybody got shut down because of the rising cases. I originally wanted to do January 4th because it just made sense. It was a Monday. I was like, why would I start on a Tuesday? But to keep things uniform, we went ahead, and again, I'm jumping ahead. So this happens. This is where I got ridiculously frustrated. And again, I got frustrated with our government officials. I got frustrated with all that, and I decided to vent to my friends and family. And I knew it might make some people angry, so I was just like, okay, I'm just going to vent to my friends and family. That's it. And I had made the mistake because I was doing these videos, and I was doing some of the scheme videos that I've been doing on Thursdays. I made the mistake of posting it publicly. It got out, it got around, it got to some of my admin. They had contacted me about it, and basically said it looked really embarrassing. And the bad part about it was, they contacted me, well, not the bad part, but they contacted me via email, and I was looking at it, and I didn't see it till 6 days later because we were in the middle of finals and everything else, and then boom, all of a sudden, I didn't even see the email until 6 days later because I had so many kids trying to catch up on makeup work that it had gotten buried. So I felt horrible that I didn't even see that I had caused an issue until 6 days later. Went down, took down the post, reread it a few times, and and I responded and said, hey, I sincerely apologize, because they were saying basically that they had felt that I'd called people out, and I'm like, no, I did not mean to call anyone out. At our school, our administration, I feel like our school and our admin's done a really good job, delineating this stuff and really communicating it towards parents and all this stuff as far as being able to hold practices and everything else. My frustrations was coming at the government, the California state government, our health and county officials, because again, in my head, the way I looked at it, over the thousands and thousands of visits we've had since June and not one positive case has come from coaching, I was just so frustrated. I was like, we're taking something away from these kids. And I just put out a warning, and I told, my admin, I said, I'm going to lose so many kids by this cancellation. I'm like, we canceled once in June. We stopped again in August. Granted, that was of our own volition and our own thing, trying to redo our schedule. But now that we've been canceled again, and we're getting pushed back, and the whole state's getting pushed back, I'm like, I can't guarantee that. I don't even know if I'll be able to have a season because I don't even know if I'll have a team. So that became my concern. And then the CDPH puts out their stuff the 14th, and basically we could have got started on the 15th, because basically they're saying you can condition outside in any tier. That doesn't matter. So I was going to push for that, but I was like, no, let's just give them Christmas break off. So I was like, okay, let's start the 4th. So after some emails back and forth and me apologizing and really getting stuff taken care of, again, owning up to the mistake that I made, we got the green light to go ahead and start the 5th. We were the first sport to get back out and started. Again, I'm kind of at the forefront trying to get our kids back out there. And the rules are just hard to enforce because, again, it's an interesting dynamic. So the new rules that came up from CIF were basically certain sports can play in certain tiers. So like right now, I mean, I'm not going to list all the sports, but just for once for our school, for our sake, like swimming, cross country, track, and golf can go right now in the purple tier. Like if all those sports want to play, they can play right now in the purple tier. They could. That's what they deem. They're slotted. Anyone can start fall contest January 25th or later, but you have to be in the correct tier. So for fall sports that are still slated to go from now until April, really only cross country, and I think we have one of our golf teams is going. So only those two can start playing January 25th. Football, we have to wait. Girls volleyball, we have to wait. So baseball gets to happen in red, which makes a little bit of sense because of the separation and stuff like that. They're really not really near each other other than in the dugout. And then football and volleyball have to wait till orange. That's a far climb because I mean that's like 7 cases per 100,000 and below a 4% positivity rate. And right now we're sitting somewhere in the 60s and a per 100,000 and a high teens, and that's like as of today. That's like as of right now. So like right now, and it's late January. I just don't know how we get there. And that's just being brutally honest. I don't know when we get there. As of right now, we're at 54 per 100 at a 17.8 positivity rate. I just kind of pulled it up right now as I'm looking at it. So we have to get to orange, and then you can play anyone inside your county. Well, in our county, there's only 2 other high schools. And I know some other counties are probably only 1 or 2 high schools. So, and then we have to wait for our surrounding counties to get to orange. So we can't even play 2 schools that were on our original league schedule because they're in a county that's on the other side of another county. So it becomes so crazy as far as trying to schedule games because like if we get to orange, then we got to wait and see who else is at orange, and then do they have an opening, and do they want to travel, or do we got to travel? And then like you could be I really, if this kind of gets rolling and we get low enough, I'm almost looking at, okay, well, if we get down low enough, we could be looking at a situation where we play a game Friday and we don't know who our next opponent is until Monday or Tuesday. And that could be stressful as all heck if we even get that far. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. And the outside leagues, what I mean are causing waves, is there's a recreational football league that started where they're charging kids like $5, $6, $7, $800 to play, and they're traveling all over the place, totally ignoring these guidelines because the guidelines are supposed to be for everybody. I've heard of AAU basketball that's been going on in different spots in California. I mean, that doesn't make it easy. And then again, you look at the 37 states that played, and then there's 13 states that didn't, and now there's 37 states that are playing basketball, and the same 13 are not playing basketball yet. So kids are just getting frustrated. And again, I mean, I haven't had a chance to look at the data ridiculously, but I mean, I don't see, and maybe I'm not looking at the right ones, and someone's going to call me out, but just to kind of put this out there, I'm just kind of saying I haven't seen a lot of news where there's a lot of kids that I see that are getting sick. I know we've seen some freak deaths, but yet again, not really knowing if that's COVID related or not COVID related. I just don't see it a lot. And again, maybe some of you are going to be like, well, then you're just not looking hard enough. There's a lot of deaths everywhere. And if that's the case, then yeah, then maybe we need to seriously take a relook at it. But it's just one of those things where I just don't see or hear a lot of it. I hear a lot of just cases, positive cases. And I just keep hearing the same thing. It affects the elderly. It affects those with, pre-existing conditions. And it's just one of those things that, well, okay, well, if that's the case, I mean, we're playing with teenagers. Most of them don't have pre-existing conditions yet. Or if they do, I mean, we're not really going to know. And they could get sick and die of something else because of that pre-existing condition. So, again, it's not trying to be morbid or it's not trying to be combative. It's just one of those things where I just don't really understand the thought process. I understand being the safe and sorry thing. There's also the responsibility and informational piece. Like we've had students, like I said, and parents that just say, well, no, we're not playing because we live with an elderly grandma or grandfather. Again, the risk, educating yourself, making an educated risk on whether or not you want to participate or not. Like that's been kind of taken away to some degree. And you can agree or disagree with that in the forsake of trying to keep people healthy. I don't know. I'm up in the air. I really am, to be quite honest on that. But in any case, so we got shut down. We came back January 5th, and we've been rocking and rolling. Now, granted, New Year, same COVID. Everyone's like, oh, 2021, we're going to be fine. Everything's going to be great. We're going to have the vaccine. We're going to be masked up. We're going to be good. Nothing has really changed. Like I said, as of today, we're at 53 per 100,000. That spike really hasn't dropped. The highest we got to was like the high 70s, low 80s. Really hasn't dropped. Severe loss of players. It is bad. I've got dropped all the way down to 12 seniors. I've gone from 40 varsity to 20. We dropped down to like the high 20s to our JV. Our JV was sitting at 45 at one point. They were going to be a huge team. And then our freshman has dwindled all the way down to about 10. So we've had severe loss of players, and that's just because the number one thing they tell me, I don't think there's going to be a season. What's the point? Our thing for the motivation for them is we'll come out, work out, because here's the thing. How many of you play another sport? The other sports, baseball's right around the corner. You can be training for that. Track, cross country, all that stuff, you can be training for that. If they're not training with us yet, again, you can be getting ready. Our seniors, hey, if you're planning on going to the next level, playing at any colleges around here, traveling, you might want to be out here getting stuff ready to go and rocking and rolling and making sure you're ready to go to play at that JC, NEIA, Division III, wherever you're going. And some of that has fallen on deaf ears. Some kids just kind of chosen to do their own thing, which, again, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You can try to externally motivate as much as you can, but you just hope that they make the right decisions and, hopefully they don't regret it later. Because a lot of them I had a conversation with, I said, hey, what happens if somehow these numbers drop fast enough and we play a couple games in February, maybe one in March, and we get to 3 to 5 games? Because it's possible. Is it realistic? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how things go. But in any case, the schedule has remained the same. We did put on helmets. We talked to our admin and we said, hey, look, here's kind of the situation. Like, some of these kids have never had a helmet on, and some of these kids have been without a helmet for 14 months. Usually they're without a helmet. I mean, if you think about it, these kids are done right around November. So they're usually only out of helmets for anywhere between 6 to 7 months, because, they're usually back in helmets by the end of July. So they're only out of helmets for 7 to 8 months. They've been out of that for double. We got to make sure their necks are all right. They're able to tackle and do this, that, and the other. So we got to be able to put helmets on, and some of these freshmen have it. And there's no rules really as far as doing that anymore. And since it's their own helmet, we just got to provide the sanitation equipment. They can sanitize it on their own. So we got the clearance for that. We've been in helmets the last 2 weeks. I was also kind of hoping that would spark some motivation. Our numbers have not grown. They pretty much stayed the same. But the kids get to at least put the helmet on. They're not hitting each other. They're not touching each other. They're still going through all the same drills. Everything's on air. We're fine. But that's just kind of the way it is right now. So, again, New Year, same COVID. We're just hoping to get to orange. Up to the minute, the CIF in the Sac Joaquin section, they canceled all their regional and title games to provide more movement so we can move around and play some games. So there's really no sections or playoffs. Can't really do that anyway with the way the county thing is set up. And then the Southern section just came out with that same announcement today. They canceled all their regional and championship stuff. So basically, there's really no league. There's really no section. There's really no anything. You just got to wait until you get to the right tier so you can play somebody. So optimistically, I'm hoping by, right now it's January 19th. I'm hoping by maybe second, third week of February we can play a game. Realistically, it's probably more like the end of February, which at that point you're kind of like, is everyone making that transition? Because spring and winter sports are supposed to be able to get started. So do you really risk, A, using your helmets, because then you got to send them to recondition? Because that's something I'm looking into, to be quite honest, because if you even use that helmet, once or twice, now you probably got to send it in and get it reconditioned. Well, if you get a bump on it, now you got to send it in. So, and then obviously worst case, we don't have a season at all. So that's kind of where we're at it up to the minute. So, again, this is kind of the end, I think, for this. I will do a little bit of summary when this season ends. I might do kind of up to the minute, not up to the minute, but just kind of revamps at the end of each week, just kind of let everyone know where we're at. Those will be kind of short little clips, kind of where we're at and how things are going. Again, thank you very much. If you got any questions, or if you go back through this series and you're looking at some things, you're like, hey, I'd really like to hear more about this or hear more about that, again, put some comments down below, hit that subscribe button, and let me know what you think. Thank you all so very much. Remember, be great, push limits, and hold the line.